Nino, it's emergency. Oh, what was that? It's a TikTok song. Anyway, hello, I'm NBZ. Welcome to the show. This is This Nintendo Life. It's a podcast ostensibly about Nintendo. I'm joined as always by my co-host, my friend, the man who is looking after a child all the time. It's Bally. Hello, Bally.
Hello, MZ. I am on Bally Chew duty. That's why my voice is a little bit lower. And we basically record. If he wakes up, we basically have to stop.
No, okay, so here's what's going to happen, Bally. If that happens, you go away, and I'm just going to continue on. Is what's going to happen. So I'm just going to keep going. We'll get your opinions first. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, hearing this right now, you know what day it is. This is the day that Nintendo announced a new console. Now, here's an interesting thing. This is the second time in the history of this show that a new console has been announced. As you'll remember, we started back in the ye old grand year of 2014.
We started 2013.
Sorry, 2013. My bad. 2013. November 2013. Like, very slim bit of 2013. So, you know, we did the whole year of 2014. But, of course, Nintendo was the Wii U and 3DS back then. Those had already been out for a while. And then in 2017, they're like, hey, we're doing this new console. It's called Nintendo Switch. Ever heard of it? And it was pretty cool. And since then, we've been waiting with bated breath to see what would happen for the successor to the Nintendo Switch.
Is this Nintendo's longest console life cycle now?
I think it might be over 8 years.
Certainly of the home consoles. Maybe the Game Boy went a long time, and maybe the NES went. I can't remember. I think it might be up there though.
I think it is number one, just because we're going to go past March, and March of this year will be 8 years since the original Switch came out. 3rd of March, of course, as we all remember. So that said, hello, welcome. We're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2, officially the Nintendo Switch 2. Bally,
can we talk about the name first?
Yeah, let's get your hot reactions to what's been going on today with Nintendo Switch. Walk me through your experience of watching this video, hyping up to this experience, all this. I want the narrative journey to get there.
So I've been checking a few accounts quite religiously the last 48 hours, ever since the VGC story reported on that podcast. Nate the Hate.
Nate the Hate, everyone's favorite. Now the king who got everything right.
Now the king, who previous to this prediction had got most things right, I understand.
It's a pretty solid track record. He's cited a lot on forums and stuff, and people are like, yeah, he got a few things right here and there, and maybe, you know, with all these people, it's a little shaky ground because these companies change stuff at last minute all the time, and, you know, they might have known something that was true, but then ended up not being true for various reasons.
Exactly. And then since VGC corroborated it, it felt a bit more legit, and like, Thursday 16th of January is looking hot, looking spicy. So then the assumption was, right, well, we'll get an announcement on either Tuesday or Wednesday that they're going to drop something on Thursday. So, right, okay, Tuesday passed, right, I guess we're getting something Wednesday. Wednesday kept going. And then Laura Kate Dale, who is another leaker, reporter person, she's pretty in tune and has a decent track record
was a big person back in the Switch 1 days for kind of getting that stuff out there.
Very big person. She made the point, this is kind of just data journalism, it wasn't actually any internal knowledge. She's just like, oh yeah, by the way, when they announced that, so the famous tweet with Mario behind the curtain, she was like, oh yeah, that was like 12:30 a.m. UK time when that got announced.
Were you staying up until that? Well, I guess you're going to be up at that time anyway.
Well, I'm up anyway. So yeah, 12:30, I'm just like, right, well, it's not happened.
Interesting context to add to that. There was a story going around from the Kit and Krista podcast. Obviously, they worked in Nintendo at the time, and they had said on a podcast that whole social media thing with Mario behind the curtain, that was a thing that the social media lead at Nintendo at the time instrumented, and other people at Nintendo were not a big fan of it. Those people at Nintendo, surprise, surprise.
Wait, so that was led by an NOA person?
Correct, yes. So it was an NOA social person who wanted to do that, and there were lots of people internally at Nintendo who were really mad about it and didn't like that they did that. And so my assumption was, having read that, I was like, well, that person's probably not working at Nintendo anymore. Kit and Krista have left, obviously. They're probably not going to do the same thing again.
Right. So then I wake up this morning, nothing had been tweeted between the hours I was asleep, and I'm like, right, well, we're going to check in with Laura Kate Dale again. What does she have to say about this, huh? With her crappy data journalism.
Sure, yeah.
And then later in the day, she's just like, oh yeah, they're not doing a preamble. It's just going to drop at 1 p.m. UK time. And she tweeted this at about maybe 11:45 a.m.
Oh, okay. Right.
So then I'm like, I posted that post on Blue Sky onto our Discord, and there were a couple of UK people responded. I guess East Coast US is pretty early in the morning, probably having breakfast at that time. And then with 20 minutes to go, I was like messaging you, and you're like, Bally, do you think it's happening today? And I just said, I think so. And I sent you the post from Blue Sky from Laura Kate Dale, and then like 1 p.m. went past, 1:01 went past, 1:02 went, and I was like, she's fucked it again.
Yeah, it's not true.
And then sure enough, at like 1:03, the first thing I saw was I went back to Blue Sky and I saw a Reset Era post saying New Switch 2 launched. And then I clicked in because I was like trying to refresh the video on my phone. So long story short, Caroline and I were getting Bally Jr. down for his nap. I don't work on the Thursday, so we were together getting him down, and I was holding Bally Chew, and I was juggling him in one arm while he was crying, and Caroline's like getting Bally Jr. down, and I'm just like, what? I'm going mad. Like, I'm trying to refresh. I don't think the app refreshes well.
So you're holding one child in one hand and refreshing an app in the other hand?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And so I go back to Blue Sky because I'm like, I can't see it refreshed. And then sure enough, I click into the Reset Era thing, and then they've got like a Nintendo UK video. I'm like, is this leaked or something? Because I didn't think it had refreshed properly. But sure enough, they just go on the computer, not an app, when you're trying to do this stuff, I think. Is
of course.
The long story short. But and then sure enough, clicked in and I watched it, and then I put it on Discord, and then I sent it to you. So I must have watched it at like 1:05 p.m. What time did you think you watched it?
Okay, so I'll give you my story run up to this.
Yes.
Okay, so similar thing to you, I did see the Laura K. Dale thing saying, the cadence was midnight. And so I was like, it's fine.
Did you stay up?
No, I didn't. I was too tired. Also, I had to go in the office today, right? So I've just come back from the office and late because we went out for drinks, and so slightly inebriated, which is great for a podcast, of course.
Weren't you out for drinks tonight as well?
Sorry, say that again?
Weren't you out for drinks tonight as well?
No, that's what I was saying.
Okay, good.
I'm saying I'm just come back.
I thought you meant last. Okay,
but not last night. No. So last night, yeah. So I was quite basically, because I knew I had to come in the office today. I was like, I'm gonna go to sleep earlier, be responsible, of course. So I did that, and I was like trying to fall asleep, and I got to sleep probably just after midnight. So I think I was, I wouldn't have seen it. It wasn't happening. But I was like, this morning, the thing that got me up, more so than like I have to go to work because I have to go to the office, was I got to check my phone and see if they did a teaser for the Switch 2. So I open up my phone, I have a look, there's nothing there. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever, it doesn't matter. And we, I go into the office, and the day keeps going on, and I was messaging, we have a WhatsApp group as well for work people. I messaged the day before being like, if they do this, we've all got to get together and like put on a TV and watch it together in the office tomorrow. So I was prepared for this scenario basically to do it.
Oh, nice.
And
resident Nintendo fan.
Of course, yeah. And there's a couple of others in the office who are big as well. But so I went to the office, did my day as usual, kind of like going through everything, and it gets to around like midday, and people go for lunch, right? So everyone else goes for lunch. I actually brought my lunch into the office for the first time in a while, and because I made
on purpose or just coincidence?
No, purposefully, because we're now doing 2 days in the office, and so usually I would just be like, okay, I'm just gonna buy my lunch in the one day I go to the office because
I might miss it.
It's a nice treat, and it's like, it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So I brought my lunch in today, not because of the Switch 2 thing, because I thought it was going to be like 3 p.m, but because I'm like, I want to save money. I made pasta last night. I made a nice bacon pasta, and I was like, I've got leftovers, so I'm going to take that into the office and have that for lunch instead. So everyone else goes away for lunch, right? And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I message you at around like 12:30, I want to say, or something like that, or maybe like 12, and you say, yeah. And then I check my phone a little bit later, and I check my phone at 12:50, and you sent that tweet, Laura Kate Dale one, saying, I think it's happening at 1 p.m. And I see this tweet 10 minutes before 1, and I'm like, oh shit, it's going down. And so, okay, I'm sitting there, but no one else is here to like, celebrate with me, so they've all gone out for lunch. I'm like, come on guys, get back, we need to be here in time. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just refreshing. I go to the Nintendo YouTube page. This is exactly what I did for the original Switch as well in 2017, went to the YouTube page and hit F5 200 times, just F5, F5, F5. And so I'm sitting there at 1 p.m, F5ing the shit out of this page, and nothing is appearing. And it gets to 1 o'clock and nothing's happening. And I go on Reset Era and everyone's like, Dream is dead, leakers are fake, it's all over, rip. And then people are like, reset the clock, obviously, because it's like, they're like, oh, it'll be 3 p.m, it'll be 2 p.m. Everyone's reset the clock. So I just keep doing it. It gets to 1:01 and I leave my desk because I'm like, well, clearly it's not happening. So I leave
desk after 1 minute.
Yes, after one, because obviously if Nintendo are doing something precisely on the hour, they're going to do it on the hour. It's going to be scheduled to the hour. So I leave my desk.
That is a very fair point. Why is it not 1 p.m? Why is it 1:02?
Exactly. Which probably speaks to they were doing it manually because they didn't want a leak situation.
Yes, that's a great point. Yes,
exactly. So there was probably someone actually at the company doing it manually.
Rockstar have messed that up for everyone. 1:02 is the new time. It's never going to be 1 p.m. again.
No, exactly. It's always like a little bit later because they have to account for the manual upload process. So I leave my desk. I go to heat up my pasta. As my pasta is in the microwave happening, my colleague Aaron is like, it's up. And I'm like, what? What do you mean it's up? And so I run over. He has the Nintendo Japan website link, which I don't know where the fuck he got that from, but he found the Nintendo Japan website link and it was there, and it said in the fucking URL, it said successor, in terms of like it's the Nintendo Switch successor, basically. And so so by that time everyone is like just getting in, or coming in and going in to eat their lunch, right? And I'm like, oh, right, everyone come around his computer. So we all go around his laptop and we're sitting there and we basically just watch the Japanese version of the reveal, which causes some consternation and confusion because no one knows the order of Japanese dates and how they do stuff. So I'm like, is it February? Is it April? Right? Which was causing a little bit of panic.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the United States is the only place in the whole goddamn world who reverses it.
Right, yeah. I think Japan, basically we weren't sure. We're like, what the fuck is this? So anyway, watched it, the Japanese version. My colleague Charlotte, the other biggest Nintendo fan in the office, has not come back because she went later. So we're all like, oh no, we watched this. We have to pretend that we haven't seen it. So Charlotte, she comes back and we just watch it all together, like pretend we've not seen it, basically. And so we all like in the room, just like sitting there for lunch, and like Charlotte comes in the door. I'm like, Charlotte, red alert. And she just like immediately into like, yes, we got to watch this shit mode. So everyone goes in and we watch it on the US one this time. So we watch the US version of it. So yeah, it was a very fun day to watch it in the office with a lot of people and then chat about it. I will say that might be the most exciting part of this because we can get into it, but this has obviously been a system that has leaked, let's say, a little bit all over the place in various ways, in various contexts that we talked about a little bit at the end of this week's podcast, but didn't really go in depth on. A lot of this stuff has been known, and I think that's unfortunate, and because we are people who follow the industry and know what's going on, there's less of a excitement, less of a, oh my god, what does it look like, what does it do, what are all the features, because it was already kind of out there. I guess let's get into the reveal itself. What are your feelings on it overall, Bally?
Yeah, I agree. The leaks might have dampened it ever so slightly for those of us who are just uber engaged and following all this thing religiously, pressing F5 like a million times and following leak accounts, and exactly. So we're definitely in the minority of people, I guess, who have seen these leaks, and I think that dampened it a bit. But then part of me is like, right, what if I knew nothing about these leaks and this was the reveal of the Switch 2? It's still a pretty iterative thing to be showing off, and as a result is maybe less exciting. And yes, it was less exciting because of the leaks, but also I think it arguably would have been less exciting because of what they've gone for with the hardware.
Just the nature of what it is. Yeah, I
think
for sure.
The biggest thing is probably the name. And I think the color scheme is interesting. Like, I think so the rumor was that there'd be like a red blue one and a white one. So this is obviously the red blue one. When they said red blue one, I thought, right, well, the Switch 1 has like red and blue, but this is predominantly black. It genuinely looks like a Steam Deck 2. Like it really has that energy.
There is a vibe to this that looks like a third party handheld
like
console.
Nintendo don't go for black. They just don't. They have had black consoles, but they've always been alternate colors, whether that's
not
GameCube,
the core variety,
exactly, GameCube, or you think of the 3DS. Like,
I guess Wii U is the one example where the premium model was black and the basic was white.
That's true, yeah. But yeah, I think that it was just pretty low key. And then the one game we saw, Mario Kart 9, presumably, was also a fairly low key reveal. Like it was like, this doesn't look particularly shiny or different, and they've definitely,
which arguably you could compare to the way that they showed off Splatoon 2 in the original Switch one, which was like, it's more Splatoon, or similar to Odyssey, where it's like, it's a 3D Mario, we don't know much about it yet, right? It's very an extremely limited view of what this could be, and I do think there is another foot that's going to drop on Mario Kart. I don't think it's just plain Mario Kart.
I agree. I definitely agree on that, on Mario Kart. So yeah, I came away from it like, my biggest feeling coming away from it was, damn, April's a long way away.
I know, I was so fucking on. When I realized it was April, not February, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, we're going to have to do...
I definitely thought it was February initially, and even though I know the Americans switch it up, I can't remember. I'm like, I had to read, I was like, am I watching the UK version or the American version? And because America's the largest market, they might not switch the date around for the UK version, they might choose the same date, but sure enough, they did switch the date around for the UK.
They just need to write it down and be like April 4th or whatever. April 2nd, sorry, Yeah,
which apparently a lot of Americans do anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, I that was my biggest feeling, because it was like, what I've learned today is Mario Kart 9 is coming to the Switch 2, and other than that, I've learned that the name is Switch 2 officially, and we kind of knew the form factor from the leak, so I've not learned a ton. The hype building up was great. I agree, it was fun, but then the overriding feeling is, damn, April is a long way away. But I'm sure that Direct, when it comes, will have a bunch of games and more details and stuff like Mario Kart. I think we'll find out what this curious other button does. So I've got two theories on the button.
Okay.
My dream theory is that it, similar to the Wii U, it'll cast it like to your TV,
right?
And you can do some like dual screen gameplay. I think that's incredibly unlikely. I think the most likely outcome is that there's some equivalent of Miiverse or Street Pass or something new that it'll immediately take you to that page to probably share content or do something,
some kind of social button,
something
of
social,
some kind.
Exactly. And I think that will all be revealed in the Direct, because one thing I really hope for with Switch 2, and I think the Switch 1 failed atrociously at, was Switch 1 from a hardware perspective. When you think about the UI and like the system software is the most soulless Nintendo console of all time, and like I need more themes. I need Street Pass. I need Miiverse. I need Everybody Votes channel. I need that energy somehow in the Switch 2, and I really hope it can deliver on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I, generally speaking, I am whelmed by it. I'm like, yes, this is exactly what people said. It's what it looks like. I think there's some interesting stuff with the fact that it is kind of exactly what people said, where it's like, there are magnets in this thing. It's going to attach in that way, and it looks...
The mouse.
Yeah, the mouse thing, there's a sleekness to it. And I think, I was listening to Kind of Funny, and something they were saying is like, so many kids kind of had the Switch as their first console, and this feels like a device that has grown up with those kids who started with Switch, where Switch 1 is like a bit more child friendly with like the bold colors and everything. This is accented colors and like a little sleeker, a little more...
That's a good point. The black speaks to that massively, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's much more of a, I was 7 when the Switch came out, I'm now 17.
But
right?
You do say that, but when we got that Switch day one, our first overriding feeling was, this is a nice piece of technology. Like, this feels a lot less kiddie than any other Nintendo handheld we've ever hold on to.
Of course. Very important context there, that we're coming off the 3DS and the Wii U, two systems that I dearly love.
Fisher-Price systems. You know?
Yes, I dearly love, but yes, you can't deny that from a pure tech sleek standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, sleek is the word I used when I first saw the Switch the first time in that initial trailer.
You feel like you can drop a Wii U gamepad out a 10th floor window and it'd be fine, you know.
Right.
Whereas the Switch never felt like that. It felt very, oh no, this is like a computer. This is something more.
There was a weightiness to it. There was the weight of it when I first felt it was like, oh, there's a premium quality here.
Yeah, definitely. This feels like a step up on that, which is awesome. Like
Exactly.
I think this is a premium product, and I wouldn't go against the theory that like the Steam Deck has influenced that partially, even indirectly, you know, like that's kind of the market, not the market they're aiming at, but people want their handheld consoles to run high fidelity, impressive looking games, and to do that you need a dense luxury piece of hardware to hold in your hand.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I do think that it's got some coolness to it. There's still the cool factor there. I think I can't help but be disappointed from this initial reveal that it is so much the same. As a Nintendo fan, and something that I think we talk about a lot is like, you can never guess what they're going to do. And honestly, this might be the thing that is the most unpredictable from a Nintendo standpoint, which is being traditional and being straightforward and not having anything necessarily wild about it. I do think the mouse is something we can come back to as like the potential wild card gimmick of what the system is going to do. But from a overall standpoint, this is the first time the internet has said, please Nintendo, just do the simple thing. Call it the Switch 2, make it a better Switch, don't do anything weird, don't go off and be creative and crazy. And they just did it.
And they
did the assignment. And I can't help but be a little sad that they just did the assignment, because the Nintendo I knew wouldn't just do the assignment.
Right.
They would do the assignment and then something else would happen and it would make it a little bit twisty. And
you don't see the mouse as that twist. That's not big enough of a twist.
Not quite. And honestly,
it's not quite 3DS 3D, is it?
Right, but to be fair, I don't rule it out yet, just because this is very basic information. This is the core, this is what it looks like, this is how it's going to feel. I don't rule out a Koizumi ice shaker situation, right? I don't rule out them being at this, whatever direct is going to be, and be like, by the way, if you take this into a dark room, it's going to glow and then put little things on a wall, and now you're going to project stuff. You know, like, I don't rule that out in any way. I do think that's still possible.
But, and I think this was Andy Robinson's theory, although I've heard it from a few others, sort of saying, this is the first ever Nintendo console that has not had the influence of Iwata or a Yamauchi on it ever. And when you think of like Nintendo's DNA and how they think about designing the handheld and console systems, for neither of those influences on this console, and supposedly Furukawa is like this businessman, he's a bean counter. Like he there is a danger that he is much more numbers driven than innovation driven, arguably, and that might be one of the reasons why it is called the Switch 2, and it might be one of the reasons why it is an iteration on the Switch 1 and not something revolutionary. And but
it's interesting, right? Because I do think Nintendo are very careful about who they chose for their successor. They even had an interim with Kimishima for over a year, right? Like, Kimishima was there for a good long period of time while they selected the best possible person. And maybe at that point in time, someone like a Furukawa made sense. I do wonder, like, if his... and, you know, we don't really know how these decisions get made, or if it is, like, how much influence he has, but there could be a sense of, like, he was a good pick for the time, for the continuation of, like, where Switch is at and where things are at. But I do wonder if in the future, you know, he might not be the best fit going forward for Nintendo as they... Because I feel, I don't know where, obviously the games industry is so hard to predict, but the console that comes after Switch 2, if it's Switch 3, that's where I worry for Nintendo as a company, because it feels like they are just sitting on their laurels and not innovating in the same way as they previously have. So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
I also think one more thing that reinforces that kind of playing it safe idea is the timing. So this reveal was quite low key generally, but think about the timing of it. Like, it's come out ahead of March 31st in order to be in this financial quarter, in order to please investors. Like, we're not actually getting, you know, substantial information on launch lineup or the games until after the financial quarter. So again, back to the Furukawa as a bean counter theory, like, you got to please investors. That's the ultimate first priority with this system. We're not doing a big games launch lineup initially. We're going to excite people just by the hardware, and that's enough for us for now.
Right. Nintendo's stock is already the highest it's been in however long, just from this one announcement. And that was obvious. It was always going to happen. And I think one of the other interesting things is I think it took a while for the original Switch video to propagate because Nintendo were not on top of the world. I believe this trailer has now been viewed over 10 million times in the last 8 hours. So they are really, this is number one on trending on YouTube. It is all anyone is talking about. They have become kings of the world in the last almost decade with the run of the Switch, and everyone is now paying attention to them. Back when we were there, only a few Nintendo hardcore were really paying attention to the actual announcement of the Switch because Nintendo were not ascendant. They were on their downward trajectory. The Wii U was not doing well. They were in the dumps. And so a very small group of people were like, what are they going to do next? And it's an opposite situation now. And you can kind of feel it in this reveal trailer where it's we're just going to give you a little bit. And we're not going to, it doesn't feel like they didn't feel like they had to sell it. And I think that's the interesting thing about this reveal. It's a CG video of hardware with no humans, with no interaction, with no, trying to contextualize it within a space.
No numbers.
Nothing. And I think contrasting it to the original Switch reveal, which was so centered around, we got to show it in the wild and how this works and explain the concept because it was a new concept that no one had seen before. Yes. There's a bit of, I do sense a bit of arrogance in this reveal, right? There's a bit of here's a swanky thing. I'm going to show you 3 seconds of a Mario Kart that kind of looks the same. You're going to buy it. We fucking know you are, right? There's a bit of that dripping off it. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it because it does feel a little removed from, scrapping Nintendo is when Nintendo really pull out the punches. And I don't know, there's been a lot of history in the past of companies becoming arrogant, like Sony with the PlayStation 2, and they're like, PS3, you're going to get a second job to buy this thing, and just not quite there, but little whiffs of it with this kind of, the direction of this reveal, if you know what I mean.
I think when you're Nintendo, and I'd be interested to check sales figures, whenever they've iterated, I don't think the sequel console has ever sold more than the original console.
Yes, I believe that's true.
So NES sold more than SNES.
Correct.
Game Boy sold more than Game Boy Advance. I think DS more than 3DS. You automatically limit your maximum number of sales by iteration. If you're Nintendo, I think it's a different situation if you're Sony because it's so much more, software driven and all these other factors. But, with the PlayStation 3 to 4, for example. But I think that for Nintendo, they know that what's the Switch on sales wise now? It's 80 million, between 80 and 90 million or something?
No, the Switch is 140. They're knocking 140. On the door of the PS2 and the DS right now.
I think there's no way in hell this system sells more than that. I think it's actually impossible. But the calculation is made, okay, but it'll still sell, 110 million units plus, and that's absolutely fine for us. We'll take our check and go home happy and move on,
And we need another decade to innovate properly here, basically.
And my biggest hope for this system is that it's got the juice to have third-party interest till the end of its life cycle. And I don't think, it's hard to say in the year 2025 will that be the case. I would bank that it won't be the case just because things keep moving, and you look at the power of the Series X and the PS5 in comparison to the Switch 1, and PS6 is going to come out in the life cycle of the Switch 2, and will it make it look as small as the Switch 1 became? I don't know, but I just hope that for third parties, for indies, it's important that this thing has the juice to match the other consoles to some degree. I think down the line, I think on launch it's going to be absolutely golden. I think for the next 3-4 years, I think this thing is going to be as powerful as the existing Steam Decks. I'm just worried about beyond that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a different world it's entering as well. The fact the Steam Deck exists, the fact there are so many high-powered handhelds, there is a worry for me to be I was so excited when the Switch came out and seeing it for the first time in action and
there were no other high-powered handhelds then.
No,
they were so niche it was not even worth talking about.
Exactly. And so playing Breath of the Wild day one in bed, I was like, this is insane. The fact that it's not like a Wii U situation where it has to be tethered, connected, the fidelity, the quality of the screen, I was like, this is crazy. I own an OLED Steam Deck, right? I've got a more powerful Switch 2 already. And I think that's the tricky thing they're going to come up against is the hardcore people who are going to be buying this day one. I don't think they're going to feel that same kind of excitement being blown away. And so I think that's where they have to deliver on the software side, which maybe is a good way to pivot into the snippets of Mario Kart 9, quote unquote, that we saw as a part of this. As the Mario Kart expert, Bally, do you have any takeaways from this, 7 seconds of footage that we saw?
I think I agree what we were saying earlier. There's going to be much more than meets the eye with this Mario Kart 9. I don't know whether that'll be the Smash Brothers-ification of the world or not. That's yet to be seen. I still think that's possible. I don't know if there's something going to be like double dash style carts or triple carts that we just haven't seen yet, or if there's going to be some other gimmick or some combination of all these gimmicks I've talked about. I'm confident it will have that. I think that if they had included the reveal gimmick, as it were, from Mario Kart 9 in this trailer, that's what everyone would be talking about, and it might nullify some of the impact of the Switch 2 reveal for the 99.9% of people out there who are unaware of the leaks. So I think that that's why the Mario Kart we saw does look so vanilla, minus the fact that the character's a bit more chibi-fied. DK's eyes are now like the movie.
He's got the kind of like shaded kind of look behind his eyes, which is more similar to that design.
It seems based on the number of grid spaces, there's 24 carts, not like
quite a lot more.
8. So sorry, 12 I think was the number in Mario Kart 8.
Correct. Yes.
So yeah, I think these are all good steps. I do need to see more of this game, and I think that visually the step up doesn't. Like, that could have been a Wii U, to be honest, couldn't it? I don't know. Like, I don't feel like the visual step up. You reach a little bit of a ceiling when you're going for the art style that Mario Kart is.
Exactly. I think like the Switch is kind of the peak of what Mario Kart can look like, and I think that's the interesting part. Is beyond that, how do you make it more next gen without making the visuals better? And that is like, well, we can double the number of races, right? Like, that's the thing. We can have all that stuff on screen, even more items, even more of that stuff. Now, here's an interesting thing I've been seeing on the street. Smoke on the street, Bally, okay? So, looking at that track, it's quite wide. It's quite long. The last shot of that Mario Kart video as part of this, look out in the distance. It goes quite a ways. It goes quite far. Looks like there's some other intersecting tracks happening in the background. Are we going to see a Forza Horizoning of the Mario Kart franchise? Is this a more open Mario Kart experience? Are they going to give us the Diddy Kong Racing Adventure mode for the single player of this? Interested to hear your thoughts on that and whether you think that's a possibility.
I think that's possible. I think that this is out in like a Route 66 style desert, and it's a big long straight track.
It's a Yoshi themed course. There's a Yoshi burger kind of restaurant like diner on the side, diner that is shaped like the burgers are shaped like Yoshi's face, which is very fun.
That's cool. There's a joy to unlocking the fastest car in Forza Horizon and finding the longest straight in that game.
Yeah.
And just seeing how many miles per hour you can reach. It's normally like a Bugatti Veyron or some car similar. I don't think you get the same joy from like finding the fastest car in a straight line in Mario Kart and just doing like a drag race. So like my hope would be, if it does go kind of pseudo open world, that, you know, there's a real diversity of locations and
like activities, right? Like, you want to imagine embedding the DS mission mode little things you do into the open world.
Yeah, it doesn't feel very Mario Kart to me. I could be proven wrong, and I hope if it is the case that they can do something, but the Forza Horizon model as it stands, I don't personally think would work for Mario Kart. I think it needs a hell of a lot of rejigging, and that's in terms of diversity of locations and straight road versus bendy road versus, you know, and like I really want the smashification of worlds in Nintendo. So, and that would kind of put a bit of a block on that theory. You can't suddenly have the Mushroom Kingdom turn into Zeebs, or, you know, that'd be harder to do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously if they were to do that, they wouldn't have kind of teased it here because they want to keep things relatively straightforward. But yeah, we did see a lot of, I spotted Pauline in the back there, like they're expanding the roster a little bit with other characters, and obviously it's going to be all the kind of main ones you expect for Mario Kart. But I don't like, I see a world in which a single player There's a more rich single player offering. Because let's be honest, right? One of the key elements of this video was the end slate where they said all Nintendo Switch or most Nintendo Switch software will be backwards compatible with the Switch 2. What does that mean? It means you can go and buy Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You can keep playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on your Switch 2. They have to give people a reason to buy a new Mario Kart.
Yeah, they can use as much carrot as they want, but they can also have this big stick that just says we're switching off the Mario Kart 8 servers on the day the Switch 2 comes out.
Yes, they could do that.
I mean, they won't, but
they won't.
They will. I'd be shocked if they didn't do that in the life cycle of the Switch 2.
It will happen in the life cycle. I think that's the thing. They can't justify doing that as soon as Switch 2 comes out because they know most people are not going to convert over to the new system. And I think if they are launching with Mario Kart 9 or if they are having that within the first year, they got to give you a reason. They have to, because if we look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe from a pure content perspective, the number of tracks in there, like it's the obvious like Mario Kart package. It's from a traditional Mario Kart standpoint, that's the game. And so you've got to do something different. Like, and I really do feel that there's some other trick up their sleeve with this Mario Kart because it can't just be another one. It simply can't because of that situation, because people will just keep playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe otherwise, right? And probably you can find it for a cheaper price, even though they hold their price for the most part. You know, that's a game that's gone 33% off in the past, so, you know.
33%?
Yeah, unimaginable.
Wow.
But that's the thing for me that makes me think it's got to be something else. There's got to be a hidden thing happening behind this Mario Kart 9, so...
are you convinced Mario Kart 9 is day one launch
I'm not.
title?
No, I'm not convinced it's a launch title. I think it would be smart to be, because I think... Would it be smart? I don't know. I feel like Mario Kart 9 is the most casual of these games, and when we're talking about people who buy a console day one, I actually, I think most people are not as excited about Mario Kart as they are the prospect of a Zelda game or a 3D Mario.
Yeah, Wii Sports was fun, but we were most excited for Twilight Princess.
Exactly. The types of people who buy this hardware immediately, your most ardent fans, aren't the ones who are like, Mario Kart is my favorite Nintendo franchise.
They need a meaty single player thing.
Exactly. You want something where you're sitting in bed on your own and you're showing off the power of this new hardware, the DLSS, whatever it is, something visually spectacular. So here's my proposal, Bal. Okay. I think there is a chance Mario Kart 9 launches with the system. And I think that's smart. I think families buying it or whoever, having a multiplayer thing out the gate, using, again, the Switch Joy-Cons to take them off and play them with multiple people. We can get to this, but the fact that they still don't have a real fucking D-pad drives me up the fucking wall. And hopefully this time they will release an official Joy-Con that has a D-pad on it. Not holding my breath on that, but Jesus Christ.
That's not happening.
So, yes, they can have Mario Kart 9 as a launch title, but they got to pair it with something. And they got to pair it with something that wouldn't get the spotlight otherwise. And we know is coming in 2025, at least to their own admission, Metroid Prime 4 launch title with Mario Kart 9.
I agree.
That is a lovely 1-2 punch of single-player hardcore thing for the sickos who would buy it, and then casual Blue Ocean for everybody else.
Yes.
What do you think?
I was literally about to come in with the same prediction. I think that you get one multiplayer casual offering in Mario Kart 9, makes perfect sense, and then you get one more single player, slightly more hardcore, well, a lot more hardcore, I guess, the Mario Kart game in Metroid Prime 4. And then, so let's say, this Direct is on April the 4th. Second, sorry. Yes, when do we think launches? I'm thinking July, August.
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility there.
I'm still convinced 3D Mario is going to come this year, and I think it will replicate Odyssey and be October ahead of the holiday period.
I think October makes a lot of sense. That's where I would put it. I think that's definitely going to get shown off when it comes out. So interestingly enough, alongside this, there was a bunch of other PR stuff that went out, and they announced that they are holding events, basically hands-on events for people to go to. So there is one happening in New York on the 2nd of April. So I think people from the press are going to go there and get hands-on time, and they're kind of spreading them out throughout like the months leading up. And the final one that they have a date for is in Korea, in Seoul, and that's the 1st of June. And there are still a couple after that have not had dates assigned to them. So we know at bare minimum it's coming out later than the 1st of June, because if they're still doing preview hands-on events up until that point in time, it's got to come after that. So I would say earliest is late June, and most likely I would say July. I think that's probably my bet. It's like mid-July sometime, which is a weird time to launch a console. I don't know any console that's ever launched in that month. But I feel like Nintendo they can kind of put it out any time and it doesn't really matter. Everyone's going to buy it at the end of the day, and it's going to be the thing
It doesn't matter when I'm sure 70% of your sales will be the holiday period in any case. Maybe not in year one, but sort of the holiday will be a big chunk. So here's a prediction. Do you think that this thing will be hard to get, or is part of the reason that this thing leaked because they're already making so many units in these Chinese factories, and that's how it leaked, and they've already got, I don't know, 10 million made at this point, and they'll have 40 million ready to go end of July? Or is this thing going to be hard to get a hold of?
Yeah, I think they are preparing. They know that people will want this. They know it's going to fly off shelves, and I don't think they're the same Nintendo who like the artificial shortage thing. I think they just want to make money and sell as many of these fucking things as they can, and especially when it is a situation of iterative console, right? It's not the same as this new idea like the Wii, which was like, oh, I've never heard of this thing before, I've got to get it, and so I think they want to sell as many as they can. I think the projection is like 20 million within the first year that they want to do. And so if they have production ready to make 20 million of these things, then I don't think it will be a problem to get it. I think there will still be the day one struggle, honestly. I think that will always be the case with any piece of hardware. They're never going to be able to satisfy day one demand, but I don't think that the shortages or issues will be anywhere near as bad as recent stuff, especially because stuff like PS5 and Xbox were so influenced by the COVID kind of situation, and everything being impossible to source and manufacture and all that stuff sort of stuff was just like completely fucked because of the pandemic. We're in a better place with that, and I don't think they will struggle as much, but I do think if you're not there at 3 p.m, 4 p.m. after the presentation on the 2nd of April on Amazon, ordering it immediately as pre-order links go live, you might struggle to get one day one, basically.
I think we'll be okay in the UK, because traditionally UK is a little less Nintendo obsessed. That might have changed since the Switch. I get that.
Yeah.
But
especially if they're launching with Mario Kart, we're a racing obsessed nation.
Obsessed, yes. So I'd be confident if we're watching that thing live, we'll be able to get it on Amazon and get a UK edition unit. But
yeah, I think we should be fine on that, and I will most certainly try and go to the easiest place possible to order it, because I don't think it's going to be one of those things where there's going to be any sort of deals anywhere or trying to get it for a cheaper price. That did happen with the Switch. There was that one website that got the price wrong and then had to sell it at a loss, which was interesting.
Remind me, Switch launched at what, £350, £75?
Incorrect, $299. It was £300 on the nose. Yeah,
$300 on the nose. Predictions for Switch 2?
I think inevitably it's $399 US, so it's $400. And because we are completely fucked as an economy, it's also going to be £399.
Yes, but that includes tax for us, not them. But yes,
that's true. Now, okay, actually, wind that back. I believe Switch 1 was $279.99 sterling. So it was $280 in sterling, $300 in USD. So we did get a slight 20 quid discount there.
Right.
But
very generous.
But I believe that the way things have been in the world and the fucking pricing of the UK.
I agree. 400. I think if they go over 400, it's a disaster. I'd be shocked. Because it's not actually a Steam Deck 2, it's a Switch 2. So they need to chill. I think it'll be 400.
Yeah, and the Steam Deck, I think the Steam Deck base edition is around 400, so like that seems like a good place to be, you know. Storage wise, how much memory is this thing coming with? Are we doing like bullshit 50 gigs again or whatever? But like I think 128
gigs.
500 gig. Wow, that was pretty good. I think 128 is like the kind of Nintendo number of like, yeah, that's enough for people. But I wonder with
it has to be a number that would really annoy you if it was any other system, but you go, wow, that's a lot for Nintendo. And I think 500 is that kind of like if the PlayStation came out tomorrow 500 gigs, I'd be furious.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think 500 would be really nice for it, honestly. I don't know if they will do that.
And I think I think Mario Odyssey was like 7 gigs or something. 3 gigs? It's like...
Oh, it's tiny. Yeah, the compression on that is fucking crazy.
So the next 3D Mario is going to be another 4 gigs, and Mario Kart will be like, I don't know, 8 gigs. And
yeah, exactly. They know what they're doing with that stuff. We'll just have the DLSS do the upscaling for us. We don't need 4K textures in this thing.
Yeah,
they'll make that happen.
One thing about the name that is bizarre, and I can't think of another example in the entire gaming industry, is to see a number printed onto the damn system.
Right? Yeah.
Can you think of an example?
That's a good point. I mean, PS2 did have it written on the side. So PS2 did have it etched into it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I think PS3 also had it etched into the disk drive. And I'm looking at my PS4. I believe that
2
also
was definitely big and blue across the middle, right?
Yes.
3 was in that Spider-Man font also across the middle?
It wasn't across the middle. I think so. The one I had was the slim, and it was etched like near the disk drive. I believe I'm looking at my PS4. The PS4 is etched into the corner of it, the top corner. So it is etched in there. I think Sony do a subtle etch, basically.
I was going to say, this thing is not subtle. It's like as big as the Switch logo on the current dock, but just with a 2. Like it's shouting
out loud. It's saying, hello, I'm here.
A take. It's interesting.
For sure.
I don't think I love it yet, but...
Okay. Yeah. I think it's as obvious as it needs to be, basically. Which I
love the name. I just don't like that it's etched all across the dock.
That's fair. That's fair. At least most people's docks are kind of hidden away and not necessarily a visible thing. But this dock does seem like it maybe could have some room to show you stuff, because the Switch kind of peeks out of the top of it, as opposed to the current dock where it's pretty much fully submerged within it.
Okay.
This one has a little bit of extra edge to it, and people have been speculating, does that mean it's going to display some stuff on the top there to you? Like, is it a thing to say, hey, your thing was downloaded, and so you can see that directly on the dock as it kind of notification.
It glows blue when you've got a message from...
Oh, if only, Bal. Let's go back to those halcyon days of a sleepover, coming downstairs and seeing the Wii disk drive glowing.
It's just that little dopamine hit you need. Like, yes, everybody votes channel. It's gone blue. Yes.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yep. Check in. Need something to check in.
Well, if that weird button is going to lead to a social hub, then maybe it's the return of the Everybody Votes channel, Bally. We can only dream. Yeah.
Early predictions. I mean, we're going to do a proper predictions episode. But
yes,
any
exactly.
vague early predictions for this Nintendo Direct thing? And we think it's going to be Direct, right?
They've said it's a Direct, yes.
Okay.
There's also rumors there's a regular Switch Direct happening in February, which is so funny.
Well, you've got to get your third-party contracts out the way before you drop the big sauce. So it makes sense, as weird as it is.
Also saw speculation that the reason Nintendo are giving such a big win, I think Jason Schreier said this, is like they've given 2 months so that third parties can announce we're making a thing for the Switch 2.
Also makes sense, yes.
Which is interesting. I think so interesting with this, going back to the first Switch video, one of the big things out there was like, hey guys, we're not fucking around. We got Bethesda, Skyrim's on this thing. And that was one of my biggest shocks from the original. You go back and watch my Switch reaction, the thing I'm obsessed about is like, Bethesda on Nintendo?
It was huge, even though it was 6 years after Skyrim. It was still a big deal.
It's easy to forget the context, because the context of the time is Nintendo third parties, nightmare. Wii U, a disaster. And Wii before that, also disaster. And Bethesda, a platform who has never worked with Nintendo in the past. No history.
Yeah. And they're American. Like, the few third-party deals Nintendo did have were all Japanese. And
Exactly. So that was the context of, like, that was maybe the biggest thing for me on a personal level coming out. I was like, what? There's Skyrim on my Nintendo thing? And so not having any of that stuff, not having to prove themselves with this reveal was very interesting. I do, however, think we are going to get some big third-party hitters when it comes to that Nintendo Direct, because I think they want to say to the world, look, you own a PS5 and you played Final Fantasy Rebirth, guess what? You can do that handheld now, and here it is. I certainly believe that to be the case. I feel like probably just Remake. I think Remake's the one they're going to show, but the other one is Elden Ring. Like, I think Elden Ring could be a really good show off of, like, hey, here's a big third party thing that you can play.
Can they get any day and date releases?
Yeah,
is there a big third party game we already know about coming out this year that they can get day one on Switch 2?
Oh man,
I say no. I don't think it's going to happen.
Interesting. If Monster Hunter wasn't February, that's what I'd put my money on because of the history. But it's February, so it's obviously going to come out and it hasn't had time to be put on Nintendo console. It's a great question. I'm not sure. I think stuff will start coming to it. Probably day and date by holiday period, I want to say. There's a lot of rumors. There's lots of bad stuff going on at Ubisoft right now. A lot of rumors that Ubisoft are basically like putting all their bets onto Switch 2, and they have like 6 games in development for Switch 2. We could see some Rayman,
including like a Rabbids collection and
thing
stuff,
for sure.
New Assassin's Creed.
Zombie U2, of course.
That's a good shout. Then the new Assassin's Creed, which name I've forgotten, the Japanese one, Shadows. That could be. Obviously, won't be day and date with Switch 2 because it's coming out earlier than June, but I think before the end of the year that game could be on Switch 2. You're
right. Atlas wouldn't do this, but it'd be nice to see Metaphor on there. That would be a really nice one, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's too much time to make that work. But
I think it's likely for like next year.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit of a slow ramp up in terms of getting modern third party stuff onto this system.
Persona Collection.
Yeah, that'd be great. Persona 3 Reload is not on Switch, so having that onto Switch 2 would be great as well. Like that would be a good remake to have on there. I think there'll be a good amount of like not third-party exclusives necessarily, but like I think stuff that Ubisoft's going to make for this system would be tailored towards it a bit more, and not something that you would associate with. It'd be more like akin to something like a Starlink that you wouldn't associate with the other platforms, right? Maybe it is available on those platforms, but it's more associated with a Nintendo console. I think that's likely. In terms of first-party stuff, honestly, I think we're going to get quite a lot. I think we're going to get a tease of a few different things.
It's true. Don't want to save any of these for predictions.
Yeah, I mean, like, just kind of lightly thinking about, like, what could be represented. We already talked about 3D Mario. I think that's going to be there. Mario Kart we'll get more information on. And I think we will not see Metroid Prime 4 in this February thing. We'll see it instead as part of
that. It's April, not February.
So when I say February thing, I mean the Switch 1 February thing.
Yes, the rumored Switch 1 February thing.
Correct. So I don't think Metro Prime 4 shows up at the February Switch 1 thing. I think it instead shows up at the Switch 2 thing. So in terms of those ones we know about, that's kind of, my thoughts on it. But there's Pokemon as well to factor in, which there's a Pokemon Presents that's going to happen likely in February
Pokemon
as well.
Day, is that February, March?
It's in February. That's usually when they do their big Pokemon Presents, and I don't know what they'll do.
I think they hold off on anything Switch 2 for then.
Exactly. I think like Nintendo are like, for their kind of partners, they're like, don't fucking say anything about software until we say it, basically. So I think they're gonna Pokemon are gonna be like, it's coming to Switch, and then not say anything about Switch 2.
Okay. Here's a fun prediction.
All right.
We can keep separate to our predictions podcast. Sure. Does anything leak from this Nintendo Direct in April ahead of time, or has everyone who was responsible for anything to do with the leaking of the hardware been shot and there's no one left to leak, and only 5 people in the whole of Nintendo know what's happening in that Direct?
Right. I think they are going to be so fucking locked down on this shit. It is unreal. After what's happened, like, they are furious. I imagine they are absolutely fucking furious.
It's really interesting listening to Kit and Krista. I don't listen to them as much as I used to, but I tune in for everything. Whenever the big Nintendo news drops, and obviously everything around Switch 2, I do listen to quite a lot of what they have to say, obviously having worked at Nintendo for such a long time.
Of course, yeah.
And it's very interesting just hearing about, like, senior people just constantly ask for reports on things. Like, it's like, right, well, we need a report on how this thing leaked, and we need a report on this, and like, so everyone who's already working on the launch of the Switch 2 now has to be writing up these reports that go to higher ups about like how this thing
they're already so
leak.
busy trying to launch this console,
and it's just like, but does the report actually solve anything? Or it just sounds like an incredibly inefficient, working for the sake of working.
It sounds like the most Nintendo thing possible.
Bad solution to the problem. And they said that the really sad thing is that it ultimately delays things like this, because what happens is Nintendo's attitude is, right, well, only 10 people can know about this Direct in April. But the Direct hasn't been put together yet, so we're going to need some people. Basically, senior people need lower down people to do their work for them. So,
exactly,
someone has to actually put this Direct together. Okay, well, now we're opening the net to 20 people, And then now that it's 20 people, those 20 people, well, they need to, get some, I don't know, actors to make a trailer.
Right.
Who knows?
We need the voiceover people. We need the editors.
Exactly.
All that
Before
stuff,
you know it, it's hundreds of people who then know about the project. And all of a sudden, their great plan of having 5 people know about the switch to Direct goes out the window because all of a sudden they realize they had to actually make the Direct itself.
Exactly. So, and then you factor in third party. If they're going to show Final Fantasy VII, they got to talk to Square Enix, and Square Enix has people on their side who know about it. And if those people know about it, they're more likely to tell someone else about it. And then, it inevitably, we're going to hear smoke about stuff. We already, like, this Final Fantasy VII stuff was already rumored, like, last year from Gamescom, of people being like, that's going to be a launch title for Switch 2. They're doing a port of it, Like, there's some of this stuff that is just, as soon as it goes out to the wider audience and just wider kind of companies who are going to have to start making games for it. Like, people have to start making games for it, so they have to know this information. And so that's where things start to propagate, and Nintendo can't control any information. And look, if they wanted to control it properly and get it out there before anyone knows it, do this fucking event in February. Don't wait until April. Waiting till April means you got 2 months and stuff's going to leak out, and it's just going to happen.
But those leaks might have already happened by now. Just by moving the clock might not solve it necessarily. But
that's true. There's no easy way around it.
There is no easy way around it, and the video game industry decides to be so secretive, and this is...
Which is great, because I do think that, like, days like this are more exciting when we don't know anything, and fucking Genki doesn't go to CES and show everybody what it looks like.
It's a really interesting point that Kit and Krista made, and I'm not sure I fully agree with them. So my view would be that hype for video games and the marketing cycle... Now, you're kind of inside on the marketing cycle, so I don't want to offend you too much, Emmy. My point is, I'm not sure things getting leaked impact overall sales, whether that's software or hardware.
I agree.
Therefore, when things leak that might make a marketing beat less impactful, I'm not sure in the grand scheme of things it necessarily makes a big impact. Kit and Krista's view was, it does make a big impact because what you want as Nintendo is your most hardcore of fans to essentially be evangelical about the product or the software. So their view was like, right, well, the hardcore are really into Mario Kart 9, so we need to be really secretive about Mario Kart 9. And then when they play Mario Kart 9, they want to be so positive about it that when they then tell their friends about it, they then buy it. And I'd be interested if they have any data to back up that theory. I don't personally buy it massively. I think the Mario Kart 9 and games like Mario Kart's up there with like GTA and Pokemon. It just sells because it is what it is. It doesn't actually matter the end. It doesn't necessarily matter the end quality sometimes of those titles. And it just is this huge juggernaut of the title. But I think that breaking the marketing beats and things getting leaked doesn't, in my view, make a big impact. But
I think that's generally correct. I think I understand where they're coming from, that especially from
also
Wii U.
They were in it, like, anyway, as a marketing arm of Nintendo, so of course they're going to be very pro the idea that marketing has big impacts and hype is important and leaks make a big deal. But
I think especially coming from a Wii U era, that was extremely important because you need all you have is your hardcore fans, right? And so those are the people who are going to give you the lifeline to maybe get back in the race again. At this point, like I've said many times, the hardcore people who saw these leaks is like 0.00001% of the people who watched that trailer today. Majority of those 10 million views are people who had no idea these leaks exist, who to them this is brand new information that they'd never seen before. And that's only going to get bigger and bigger as this trailer goes wider and wider, right? So yes, it's frustrating for us because we're the people who care about this stuff the most. But at the end of the day, in terms of impact on sales, I don't think it matters at all. I just really don't. So it's interesting. But I'm glad it's out there. I'm glad that we can actually say Switch 2, Bally. How do you feel that Nintendo made the sensible decision this time and just put a 2 on the end?
I think that's what feels the most uncomfortable about this whole situation, is that it doesn't... There's so much of what happened today that just doesn't feel very Nintendo. When you followed them as long as we have it, I agree. I think it makes the next console... I don't want them to lose the Nintendo magic, and I already said, I think that's why it's so important that I want the Switch 2 to have a lot of Nintendo soul and a lot of Nintendo energy in that UI, whether it is something like Street Pass or something unknown. You know, I just want something that makes us go, wow, this is really, you know, I never thought of that, and now I love it. And I think Nintendo have done that to us so many times over the years, and I need more of that. That's beyond just the big software, because that we already know that's coming.
Yeah. Are we in a place now where all the wacky ideas just become these side things? I mean, take Alarmo, for example. It's its own product. It's not part of their core thing. It's like, we made this fucking alarm clock, which is like, that is the most Nintendo thing possible. It's so weird and out there, and it's not part of their core console business. It's like, okay, all those weird people who make strange hardware stuff on Nintendo, it feels like they've just been shoveled off into a corner to make other products, as opposed to channeling that energy into the core hardware itself.
True. I still think there'll be something quirky we don't know fully about, and I do think this potential mouse, like, I think we haven't talked about the mouse. Yeah, we have very fixed views on how mice are used to play video games. They are either first-person shooters or RTS games, or, you know, some sort of sim management games, or
the Golden Idol series, of course.
The Golden Idol series. I think there are ways that a mouse can be used in gameplay we have no idea yet that Nintendo will already be onto, and there'll be like certain bosses in the next 3D Mario where you have to use the mouse, and like and that sounds ridiculous now, but when we see it in action, it'll be like, that is so cool. Why didn't we think of that? That is amazing. And I think there will be cool, and that they can even recycle some ideas they never used from like the Wii era, that they now have, like, a mouse has so much more finesse than a Wiimote, you know, like there'll be ideas that they never fully utilized in something like Galaxy 2 that I think we'll see come back in a launch game or a launch window game, because I think 3D Mario will be launch window, not launch. I think we'll see stuff like that in this April thing, and we'll both be like, wow, okay, that's a cool use of the mouse, and that's kind of revolutionary in a fun Nintendo way. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I do think that, as with everything with Nintendo hardware, they never make it for anybody but themselves. And so that mouse capability has been deliberately put in there because they had an idea in one of their core franchises to do something with it, and so it's in there, right? It's not just a Mario Maker 3 making the menu easier to navigate. It's definitely more than that. Yeah, for sure. And I think a nice side benefit is, I think it's actually kind of interesting, because looking at the Switch's library, we were always I certainly was very befuddled and confounded by the fact that a lot of classic, like, CRPGs and city builders, like City Skylines and even Civilization came to Switch, and a lot of people bought them there. Like, a lot of people played them on Switch. Might be partially a response to that. Exactly. And so I think it's a side benefit that this mouse means, like, you can put Civilization 7 onto Switch 2 and you can play it with a mouse, right? Like, that would be a very natural thing to do, but that's not why Nintendo put it there. Nintendo put it there because they had some fucking weird idea with this mouse technology, and they're like, we're going to do this. And anyone else can benefit from it, but it's for our software. That's the reason. And there's always been this intrinsic tie between Nintendo hardware and Nintendo software, right? It's always, since the beginning of time, the N64 controller was built for Mario 64, right? Yeah. And so I do think that there is something with whatever this core game, like, I mean, Metroid Prime 4 is right there. It's a first-person game, Like, does that make sense as an alternate control scheme? Who knows? But yeah, I definitely think that's going to tie it together. It's an exciting year. It is, yeah. And I'm actually very glad that this is all that we get, because it does mean that we can have a bit more of an interesting predictions episode. Yes. Obviously, less so on the what does it look like side, how does it work side, but more so on the what are the weird out-of-pocket features. It might still have its projector, you don't know. Who knows? Yeah, the Switch Up is still, a possibility out there. But, like, talking about software lineup, talking about price, all that other stuff, there is lots of stuff we don't know yet, which is yet to be filled in, and so little,
what's the rainbow cloud? Silver lining. There we go. Nice little silver lining on the cloud is that the TNL predictions episode is not completely bust for this year. You know, there's some stuff we can do for certain.
Oh, here's one more thing. This is a very light prediction, so it's not like included in our predictions episode. You know how like it was rumored the red and blue one, but also the white one?
Yes.
I reckon that rumor is true, and I reckon the white is replacing the black, not the red and blue.
Interesting.
So both SKUs will have the red and blue, but you can have a black or white version.
Right. So the accent will be clear, which makes sense because you want to know which is which and how you kind of...
and the accents. There's already a handful of games on the Switch 1 where the accented colors of the colors of the Joy-Cons themselves impact the game in some way in the multiplayer or whatever. So just to replicate that a bit, I think they would keep that.
Yeah. In which case. Who's buying the white? Who's buying the black? Well, you know, you were the basic Wii U man, so you got to get the white. You know, I'm taking the black. So
I think the whole red and blue thing might actually be far more intrinsic to the Switch 2 because you can see red and blue as part of the actual system,
right?
Like the screen. So if you're buying lots of multicolored Joy-Cons, sure, you might get a green right Joy-Con, but it's still going to have that red on it, you know, because that's the side that it is. So I don't know how to get around that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like the kind of the point at which you slide it in or just attach it to the side.
Which backs up my view that the white SKU would keep the red and blue.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's a very, very smart point for sure. Interesting stuff. Well, there's lots of things to think about, lots of things to speculate on. That mysterious button. Haven't talked about much about like the Joy-Cons themselves as like controllers. They feel, I mean, looking at them anyway, with the whole magnetic attachment
thing. Well, they have Joy-Con drift is the biggest question of them all.
It's another thing, like the Hall effect sticks. Apparently, there was a couple of moments in that trailer where they were like really rotating those sticks as if to say, "Hey guys, look, we can rotate these sticks all we want. They're not going to drift. We're going to be fine." You know, like there's some subtle stuff in there that I'm like, are they fucking poking fun at everybody to be like, "Oh, look at this, guys. It's going to work this time." Who knows? But yeah, the playing a Joy-Con on its side feels like those buttons on the top will be more pressable without having to have that stupid strap slide on. Notice that there's no slide on with the strap. The strap is just the strap, right? This time, instead of having this additional thing to create the buttons to be more pressable.
Yeah.
I would say the worst thing about current Switch Joy-Cons held sideways is pressing those SL and SR buttons is fucking impossible. They're so tiny unless you have the attachment. Yeah. And these ones look elevated in a way to which you could actually do them without having that attachment, which I think is good.
Yeah, does look good. Yeah. It's hard just looking at the Steam Deck and thinking like, can I slide the sides off? Because that's how big these new Joy-Con are going to be. Like that is quite weird.
Size comparison's an interesting thing. Like I'm gonna have to hold my Switch a bunch and like look at these screens and be like, oh, that's how much bigger it's gonna be, right? Just like moving my hands to the side and be like, I
think the Switch 2 might be, I might now need a cushion on my lap to play it versus the Switch 1. Whereas
maybe
because that's the difference between Steam Deck and Switch for me at the moment is Switch 1, I don't need that cushion. Steam Deck, definitely need that cushion to support my wrist.
I'm going to guarantee that this is going to be lighter than a Steam Deck. That there's no way it's heavier than a V1 Steam Deck.
Yeah, how much? Steam Deck's like, I don't know, 3/4 of a kg.
It's really fucking heavy.
I don't know. It's not a kg, but it's not a million miles off, I'm sure.
It's not. But yeah, it's goddamn. It's a weighty beast of a thing. Yeah. Well, anyway.
Do you know anyone else who has podcasted this long about that? It's 2 minutes and 22.
I don't probably. Look at my podcast feed. I've got a lot on here, so clearly a lot of people are. But I don't know. I don't feel like people go into don't have the knowledge or depth that we do as connoisseurs of Nintendo. People who follow Nintendo, who grew up with Nintendo for a long time, but also very in the weeds with the specifics.
There's just like this internal boyhood excitement inside me today, like before I watched it, and like there's just something, even with the leaks, even though it's quite iterative, there was still something inside me. I was like, oh my god, there's a new Nintendo system coming out. This is very exciting.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a joy that I'm glad we haven't lost, you know, because like with everything else,
and I even though I love Xbox and PlayStation, I just still don't get that feeling with those new systems. It's not the same.
No, definitely not. And I think that's part of their history, is like they're so focused on other stuff. And like we said, like this feels like this is probably the most PlayStation and Xbox-like a Nintendo reveal has ever been.
Oh, yeah, easily.
And yet there's still that magic. There's still that magnetic Joy-Con clicking into the slot that's like, ooh, that's satisfying. You know, like there's that little bit of juice when they swirl the stick around and suddenly there's an accented color on it, you know, like there's some good stuff in there for sure. That is very exciting. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to do us for this emergency podcast. Emergency. So the TikTok that's based, so there's basically this song from like the 80s called like Doctor Something, and TikTok is a whole phase thing anyway. Basically people on TikTok were dancing to this song, and so emergency is stuck in my head. So anyway, I just need to close the loop on that from the very beginning of the podcast, so doing it at the end here so everyone realizes what I'm talking about. If you're waiting for that information, there you go, you can now figure it out. But we'll be back, Bally, quite soon with our Patreon episode for our Nintendo Games of the Year. And then after that, we'll be back with our predictions for the year of 2025 with Nintendo, most of which I imagine will be centered around this very topic of the Switch 2.
We'll also cover Game Trade from 2024. We'll get there. Yeah,
we'll do lots of other stuff. So subscribe, listen, go to everywhere, review us, all that good stuff. And we'll see you soon with some more chatter about this goddamn fucking company we call Nintendo. Until then, thanks everybody, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.